Any sane person today who is rational would consider the risks that nuclear weapons pose to be unacceptable. There's a book by Eric Schlosser, Command and Control, that lists so many of the near catastrophes we've had. I did an article called The Process of Zero for the World Policy Journal, in which I list some of the salient ones. What people don't realize is that the most famous coming to the brink was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in the Cuban Missile Crisis, there were literally dozens of nuclear weapons that were fully operational in Cuba. And had the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States had their way and invaded, those missiles would have been launched. Field commanders had authority to launch them. So we came literally to the very brink of ending civilization that day. In 1983, there was a colonel named Stanislav Petrov. There's a documentary that's going to be more publicly seen in the near future called The Man Who Saved the World. He was a colonel watching the computers, and the computers of the Soviet Union that day showed a full-scale American launch. He did not pass it up his command and control because he knew there would be inadequate time for them to say, we will restrain ourselves to determine whether this is a mistake or this is an actual attack, because their concern was the first volley would be aimed at their missiles. So he violated his protocols. In 1995, there was a weather satellite launched off the coast of Norway. It had a trajectory that looked very much like a Trident launch. The Norwegians had told the Russians about this, but somehow it didn't get passed up the command and control appropriately. And Boris Yeltsin was informed of this. He had less than 15 minutes to decide. Some say it was 8 minutes to decide whether this was the first launch that would be a electromagnetic pulse nuclear explosion over Moscow that would fry the command and control, basically taking out the eyes, ears, and communications of Russia, to begin a full-scale American launch. He knew, or he believed correctly, that Bill Clinton wouldn't do something like that. But he wasn't drunk. He was in his full wits. But this one man decided to do the right thing, restrained himself, and saved the world. And I could go on all afternoon with numerous examples of this sort of computer errors. There was a chip put in a US monitoring satellite, and the first time it saw a sunrise, it appeared to be a Soviet launch. And Bill Perry was the person in the United States who restrained himself, called the, he said that he called the radar facilities in Thule, Greenland and Alaska, and determined that it was a mistake. But this was a simple error. Somebody had overlooked programming the computer chip to be able to distinguish between a missile launch and a sunrise. The point is that as human beings, we cannot make machines more perfect than we are. And machines make mistakes. And machines will continue to make mistakes. And computers are machines. And we know that within the gene pool of human beings, there's the possibility of insanity, of madness, megalomania. So over time, either oops, a computer error, or bozo, a human being who is not functioning in a healthy way, will lead to the use of a nuclear weapon. And the catastrophic consequences are simply too high. It is not a rational way of pursuing security. I often think about a danger of some computer hacker creating the illusion of an attack in South Asia between India and Pakistan, in which they would only have about 300 seconds to decide whether this was a full-scale launch or a computer error or a human error. Other human beings, just as fallible as you and I, would have to make that decision. That decision should not rest on anybody's shoulders. So any rational person would say this risk is too high.